Throughout the years, my partner and I have used many different gaming systems for role-playing games before we eventually settled on Pathfinder 1st edition as our main one. So I thought today it would be fun to just kind of talk about all the different systems that we used and just kind of let you know how well we like them. And with that, welcome Legions of the Undead, I'm AeroTheLich. Let's talk about some gaming systems. Maybe you'll find one that interests you as well. So, first one I want to talk about is Aborea. Aborea, as far as I know, is a German system, and it's pretty unique in many ways. But I think the most unique aspect of it is its combat, because it doesn't use armor class in a, let's say, in a traditional way. You don't roll to hit and then roll again for damage. You only roll once, and your weapon damage is added to your roll. If your roll exceeds the opponent's armor, then you do damage equal to your roll minus the armor of your enemy. So for example, let's say my enemy has an armor of 5 and I attack him and I roll a 7. My weapon gives me +2 on my attack, so I have a 9. So 9 minus 5 equals 4, so I deal 4 damage to my opponent. It's pretty simple, but it's very effective. It has other weak points though, but for first system it's very good, it's very easy to learn, and it doesn't cost much, which is one of the main factors when you want to learn a new role-playing game. You don't want to spend like $100 on one rule book. But yeah, Aborea is a pretty good game. You can check it out if you want to. I don't know if it's available in English, honestly, but whatever, you'll find it. Next up is, of course, Cthulhu, which, as I said before, is my favorite role-playing game of all time. Cthulhu seems very complex at first, but it's really not. It's pretty simple. It uses percentage-based rolls, so every ability, everything you have is scaled to 100. So for example, your character has 50 strength and he wants to open a door. Then you roll 80-100. You have to roll 50 or below to successfully break open the door. Same thing goes for combat, like every weapon has a value. Like for example, your character has 40 points for like attacking with a knife. So you roll the 100 and you have to roll 40 or below to hit your opponent, and then your opponent can like dodge or counter by rolling for agility or for their own weapon, and so on. You get the idea. It's very simple, it's very effective, but combat is of course not the focus of Cthulhu. It is the horror and the madness that comes with everything. It's very, very fun. It's super awesome. My party and I still love playing it to this day, although we don't play it as much anymore. But it still remains my favorite system. It's very awesome. I highly recommend checking it out. Next up, I want to talk about another role-playing game that I think is only available in Germany. It's called Black Depths, or Schwarze Tiefen, if you want to say it like that. It was released by Pegasus Spieler, and it came with a copy of the game The Sinking City. Like Pegasus Spieler pretty much gave it out for free. It is a very rules-light version of Cthulhu. It pretty much operates on the same system, but the dice rolls are different. It's very rules-light, but it's also very limited in what it can do. But it's free and it's awesome. You can just Google it, I think, as The Sinking City Black Depths or The Sinking City Schwarze Tiefen, and you should find it as a free PDF download. Again, I don't know if this is available in other languages than German. I don't know. I tried to find it in English, but I couldn't. So maybe it is really only available in Germany, which would be a bit sad, because it's a really good little rulebook. City of Mist. City of Mist is absolutely fantastic. First of all, City of Mist plays in the present day in a city that has been veiled in a strange mist that gives some of its inhabitants superpowers. And those powers are based upon any fictional or real historical person that you can think of. So for example, one character could have the powers of Thor, or someone could have the powers of Spider-Man or whatever. It's super interesting, it's very fun to play around, and it's very open. The way you create your character is that you ask questions about your character, And the answer is then your power. So for example, you could ask, in what way does your character use their power the most often? And the answer could be something like turn his skin to stone, and that would be your skill. And so you build up your character. You always have to balance like your superhero life and your private life. It's very interesting. It's very deep and very interesting. I can't really explain it here because we would be sitting here for like at least an hour. But I recommend checking out Runesmith because he made 3 very good videos on City of Mist that I highly recommend checking out. It's super awesome, very, very creative gaming system, super unique. My party and we love playing it. I highly recommend checking that out. Savage Worlds is the next one. Savage Worlds is pretty cool. It is very fast-paced and super simple. What I love about Savage Worlds is that you don't have specific classes, like you don't have clerics, fighters, and so on. Instead, your character chooses between different edges, like between different abilities that then combined make up his class, in air quotes. That way you are not limited by anything. You are not limited by your weapon or armor choice. You can pretty much just do anything. And that is something that makes Savage Worlds also very unique because you can play any scenario with it. You can make a space adventure, you can make Dungeons and Dragons like dungeon crawler or whatever you want. Savage Worlds is very flexible, and yet manages to be pretty deep with simple mechanics. I personally really enjoy playing it. My party, I don't know, I think they were pretty split on their opinion with this rule set. I would recommend at least like reading the starter rules that you can get for free. Next up, we have Starfinder. Starfinder is pretty much the Star Wars equivalent to Pathfinder. It is just as deep and complex as Pathfinder is, but it has some improvements. So, for example, it's not as rules heavy as Pathfinder is, except for the shipbuilding. The coolest thing about Starfinder is that you can build your very own spaceship and you can customize it in many different ways. But with that also comes a lot of complexity and like rules. For example, like you have like power cores, and everything you build into your ship takes away power. So you have to balance it out with other stuff. It's a bit, as I said, it's a strange balance between, on one hand, it's simpler than Pathfinder, but on the other hand, it's also more complex. So yeah. But it's cool. If you like Pathfinder and if you like space adventure games, then you will love Starfinder. I think it's at least worth checking it out if you can find like the PDF online or whatever. Another free rulebook that we used is called How to Be a Hero. How to Be a Hero was created by Rocket Beans. They are a German YouTube channel and they created their very own rule set, which is based on being very flexible and very free. Just like Savage Worlds, you don't have given classes or anything like that. Your character pretty much just chooses their abilities freely. They can pretty much do whatever they want, which means that just like Savage Worlds, it can also be used in any scenario. The rules are pretty flexible. They're constantly being updated, and you also have many free adventures on their website. So if you want to, you can check it out. I don't know if the rules also released in English. Actually, I'm gonna have to check, but I highly recommend it. How to Be a Hero. Very sweet little, very free rule set. Okay, let's talk about the big three now. Aside from Cthulhu, that one stands atop. But yeah, the other ones, Pathfinder First Edition, is, as I said, the one my party and I have settled on as our main rule system. What I love about Pathfinder is the price. Honestly, we didn't want to spend $50 just on one book, so we could kind of play D&D. So we choose to buy Pathfinder instead because the first edition rule book was only like $20, which was considerably cheaper than buying anything D&D related. And yeah, we love it. Pathfinder is very complex, very deep combat system. Definitely, it's very combat focused, I'd say. There are many ways that you can customize a character, many different talents, feats. Most of the classes are pretty deep. It's Pathfinder. It's very, very good. and I highly recommend checking it out if you are looking for a fantasy game that is like D&D but is not D&D. Next up, we have, of course, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Dungeons & Dragons is cool, but we don't play it as often. Yeah, I don't really know. We just like Pathfinder a bit better. I think it's mainly because D&D feels a little bit bloated with all the extra rules, all the different like rule books and whatnot. Of course, you can always choose and pick what you want your game to be, and you can always like change the rules that you don't like, whatever. But D&D is amazing. I have the Curse of Strahd revamp box actually, because I just love Curse of Strahd. It's an amazing campaign. And yeah, D&D is like, it's the most popular, I think the most popular, or at least the most well-known tabletop role-playing game out there. If someone tells you they play Dungeons & Dragons, you know what they're doing. It's very mainstream. We'll see what the future brings. Wizards of the Coast recently made some choices that made a lot of people not like them anymore, which I can completely understand. Dungeons & Dragons is still very, very good. I would not spend so much money on the rulebooks though, to be completely honest. Like, that's just me. I prefer things that are cheap or things that are free. But yeah. Anyway, moving on. Basic Fantasy. Basic Fantasy, I have an entire video on this rule system. I love it so much. It's super amazing. It's very simple. It's easy to learn. It's dangerous. You can customize it in many different ways due to its simplicity. You don't have to think about 50 different rules just because you want to add your own class or your own race. It is super customizable. It is amazing. It is completely free. I really want to get my party to play more Basic Fantasy. Maybe I'm just pushing the propaganda at this point, but yeah, I don't know. It's really good. I can't really think about any rule system that I actively did not like. Like, many things have aspects that I'm not really too fond of or that I changed. But at the end of the day, you as the dungeon master or you as the party decide what rules go and which don't. And you can always customize out the stuff that you don't like. If I had to give my opinion on my favorite ones, I'd have to say Basic Fantasy is like my go-to. Like, if you want to get into role-playing games, I would recommend you Basic Fantasy for all the reasons that I talked about in my video. If you want a more complex game with more depth, more options in like classes or whatever, and you don't want to write everything yourself, then I'd recommend Pathfinder or Dungeons & Dragons. And if you want to play an amazing eldritch horror adventure with just depth and world building, you can always play Cthulhu. I just fucking love Cthulhu. I think that's everything I want to say. So yeah, those are my big four. I will try to find a link to every book I just talked about, and I will put it in the description of the video so you can check out all of them and then make up your own mind on which one you personally like the best. Let me know in the comments, which one do you prefer? Have you played any or all of these systems? Which one is your personal favorite? I really want to know. And yeah, until next time, I'm AeroTheLich. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.